So we're here at Blockshow 2019 in Singapore, and here I have with me Saranya from Microsoft Azure. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
So just a brief introduction, of Microsoft Azure. As a technical lead, could you tell us a little bit more about how you got here and what you're responsible for?
Sure. So I started Microsoft as a developer, like normal other devs, then moved on to a very interesting role called technical evangelist or a developer advocate, after which was a solution architect, now lead a team of cloud solution architects for the Asia Pacific region. Essentially, we help our customers and partners to build end-to-end applications and solutions on Azure, and this honestly includes everything from bare metals in terms of network, compute, storage, but blockchain. We have a bunch of blockchain projects happening, and then also towards the data access and AI components, IoT, etc. Yeah.
Okay. Just a little bit more about Microsoft Azure itself. There are with over 20 solutions, on the platform. Which ones are the most popular ones for developers?
This is a very tricky question, to be honest.
In your opinion?
Sure. Because it's tricky because it really depends on the market, right? In our region, there are developed markets, developing countries, so it's a very interesting mix. There are markets which are very open source focused, like Korea, and so there's very different. But then fundamentally, the easiest way to move to Azure is infrastructure as a service, which means core network storage and compute are main. But then increasingly, we are seeing more and more requests for developer API access services. So it could be anything like authentication and identity seems to be very critical as well. And then the buzzwords like what's the Azure differentiation that's probably not there in the other clouds. So our DevOps toolchain, very integrated, specific endpoints, ability to be on Windows and Linux, open source, and for .NET developers. So it's a lot of options. So it's pretty hard for me to pinpoint one particular service. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Other than the ones that we've just mentioned, what are some of the other user-friendly features of the platform?
So specifically for blockchain service or all? Oh yeah, so on the blockchain service, this is really a core team. They've come up with about 2 or 3 layers, the way I like to unpack it. One is you can build blockchain solutions by actually setting up your nodes, whatever the nodes can be, create your own virtual machines and set that up, and that's your infrastructure as a service. Today, we used to have Ethereum private blocks chain available, but what is interesting feature is the public preview launch of the Azure blockchain service today for Corda, and Corda has been announced, but Quorum as well, that's set up, and that's primarily proof of stake, bit of proof of authority, and ability for developers who know how to build smart contracts to be able to go and just spin things up.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that just walked me through my second question, actually. So let's move into, we've looked at the really great features of Microsoft Azure. I was wondering, what are the challenges, for developers for using this platform, or are there any potentially?
So the challenges is again a tricky question, mainly because blockchain is very new when you look at an enterprise space. There's a lot of interest for Fortune 500 companies to start doing things on blockchain, but all of them are more POCs, right? So production, commitment, and deployment, if that is not to that level, then there's going to be a lot of, in terms of your question to your point, is what are the developer challenges, right? So first and foremost, to be able to prioritize those challenges to say what Microsoft needs to ship first versus second. That can happen when there are production deployments in massive scale. So that's going to be a slow feedback loop for us to start building and prioritizing. But generally, I think support across various kinds of chains, right? So today we are just supporting Quorum, JP Morgan's blockchain, but then Corda. But I'm sure people are going to ask more delegated POS, for example, or ability to connect between two validator nodes through which are today they need to be in a single region. Can they be in different regions? So there could be a lot of feature requests. That's what I mean. And those feature requests, to be able to prioritize that, we'll go back to the community and our customers. And if there are production deployments, then that feedback is fast. But if we don't have enough, then we have to do a trade-off to say which one can. It's more like you have capacity constrained resource optimization problem. Even to build what we want to build, I think is one such optimization problem. Yeah.
Could you also tell us a little bit more about the Azure blockchain tokens that was announced basically recently?
Yeah, I think decentralized ID is a huge announcement that came out with it. So we've heard of D-apps and we've heard of all of this decentralized ledger. But the tokens seems to, I really don't know the internal nitty-gritties of how things are set up. But I do realize that the whole identity piece of creating opens up multiple avenues for various customer use cases. We're already seeing use cases not just in the financial sector with eKYC, but also in other sectors, very much on tokens. So I think it's one of the most wanted feature set, and it's been rightfully deployed. Yeah.
Okay, cool. In Singapore, there has been a lot of blockchain events, basically focused on financial inclusion, and we want to kind of get into, talent inclusion, which is also has something to do with gender as well. So, as a technical lead at Microsoft Azure, do you have any advice that you would give to, women, in the tech space as well as the blockchain space? Because, there aren't a lot of talent like you, being in the tech space, like being a developer as well.
Yeah, I'm observing the same, right? So I'll say 2-3 things. I would encourage all women to go ahead and do what they're passionate about, right? So I'm sure a lot of women are actually passionate about STEM. By STEM, it's like science, technology, engineering, math. And math is really lovely once you start loving the subject. So go back to the roots of what really are the things that you like. And to be fair, every company, not just Microsoft, I'm sure all the companies today are very cognizant that they want diversity. In Asia, gender is still a diversity factor, right? So in that way, all things equal, gender will take a precedence and we will be nurtured together. Personally, we do like tech and women meetups, we do coffee mornings with women, and we just do mentorships on our own, and Code for Women initiatives in Singapore. So I encourage all of them. It's just that, we need to go and ask for help, and we need to do things that we are truly passionate about. I think it boils down to, passion as your profession. That's kind of the way I think to go. Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of talent, I was wondering, do you have any advice for people who are trying to get into the space, not just, women, but everyone in general? And also, what do you see for, how are you handling talent shortage in the industry?
Yeah, so general talent shortage we see in plenty. Probably they are trying to take it in 2 steps, for women and for general population. I think for women, for the general population, maybe, I think it is more important for us to know what we are talking, really, and feel committed to what we are doing. Blockchain is like so new. You really don't need a legacy of 20 years back knowledge to actually go up. So I see a lot of young talent, people who are interested to get onto blockchain. I would encourage you to pick up specific areas and go deep. Early on in the career, any technical talent needs to go deep versus grow broad. As they grow up, they'll realize that the depth actually is what sustains them to grow broad. So going deep could be, you could be a developer and say, I like to code and understand full stack dev, great. Or you could be more like a domain expert to understand where it's coming from and how I can add value. So there are various avenues to do that, but my only takeaway, no shortcut to hard work. You just have to go deep and then use your ecosystem and that's more for the women as well. Like use your network ecosystem. There are a lot of actually technical women like you and I out there, but we probably are not connecting to the right people. So I think we just have to acknowledge the fact that there is an ecosystem for us and we can leverage that ecosystem. And then if you focus on going deep, write code. If nothing else you want to do and you want to be a tech person, just go write code. That's all.
Okay. Last but not least, we would just like to know what you predict for the future of blockchain, and if there are other updates or developments that you could share with us in regards to Microsoft Azure.
Sure. So with respect to blockchain, it's a very personal opinion that I'm trying,
sure, no
right? I think it's here to stay, right? However, you see whether will we have a fully, decentralized systems, data apps and control system. That is quite a debate. Like I personally think there will be hybrid scenarios for sure. I also think that more and more with all the data security and other constraints that we're seeing, there's going to be situations where you will have one part in private blockchains as much as we have public. So and ICO and crypto versus blockchain used for various other use cases will be clearly delineated. We'll have situations where you could do IoT, token management, you could do asset tracking, and energy, global warming, greenhouse. You can actually use it to all of these things, because when you talk about issues like pollution, rich countries want to track it hard. Much poorer countries, because they want to get industrialized, they really they want to take shortcuts to pollution because they want industrialization. So you have a lot of opportunities to go. So I think it's going to be very, very useful. And with hardware technology advancements like Intel, SGX and others, even scalability in public chain, and having one chain node, say, in the US and another node in Australia, how can they be consensus between each of them real time and super fast? So transactions per second seems to be one indicator, but there could be others. So all of these things, as we see hardware innovation, as we see software adaptability and better algorithms, I'm very, very bullish that we will see this going. Yeah,
that's good. That's always nice. So thank you again, Saranya, for taking the time to talk to us today. We hope to see you again soon.